comes to us from a Aldridge background. She has been an examiner at the national level for 14 years. She has served in just about every capacity on the Baldridge board and looked up.
Hey, Doug, I've been to disaster recovery over there.
Okay. Just making sure that which way I'm running. Reminds us, I shared a story earlier. I teach scuba diving. I did teach scuba diving. One of the most famous questions that scuba students ask you is, what do you do if a shark shows up? How can you possibly outswim the shark? And the response is, you don't have to outswim the shark. You only have to outswim your dive buddy with a knife stuck in their knee. But back to my partner, Denise. No knives in her knee. Denise's background in Baldridge is very extensive. She's recognized by the senior leadership of the Baldridge community as one of, if not the leading Baldridge healthcare experts in the Baldridge community. She's worked in everything from being on a team, to being a team leader, to being a national trainer for the Baldridge Board of Examiners. She's written case studies. She's been on the review team, the scorebook team for case studies. She's written awards. She's received awards. Just about everything you can think of in Baldridge she has done. She comes from a healthcare background. She is by blood or genetics, she's an ICU nurse. That's her favorite place to be. Despite her being promoted up through the ranks in the healthcare world to being a vice president for a regional healthcare system, her love and passion is being at the bedside with critical care patients. And for the last 7 years, Denise and I have been working together, doing consulting, and we've had the opportunity to train the Oklahoma Board of Examiners for a couple years now, and we're looking forward to working with all of you again.
That training is why so many people know us in here, because we have done a lot of training out in Oklahoma, and we really enjoy it. We have a display booth outside of it. If you want to talk to us more, we'll tell you how much we love Oklahoma and the great people here. But we do want to give the presentation. I outrank Doug in only 2 areas of life. One is I've been involved in examiner 1 year longer than he has, and I'm 1 year older than he is. But Doug retired from the Army at the rank of full colonel, and that's when we started doing consulting work together, because we really both are very passionate about helping organizations improve. And Doug has also fulfilled all the roles, all the things, judge, applicant, program administrator for the Army, and now for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Working on Baldridge, just really has a multi-perspective. Pretty much, not quite literally, but whatever seat you're sitting in out there in your Baldridge journey, one or the other of us, or both of us, have probably sat in that seat. And that's part of where we came to with our presentation today. One of the things that organizations are kind of struggling over, it's one of the newer concepts to really get embedded into Baldridge, and that is this notion of innovation. And what does that mean? How do I create it? How do I recognize it? How do I measure it? And all those kinds of things. And then also using that innovation to drive the intelligent risk making decisions about that to drive improvement. So that's what we want to talk about today. So this is what we're going to be doing. We do come up with what we call the ideal solution concept, which we're going to introduce here, and hopefully you'll take it, you'll use it, you'll love it, it'll fit with your organization. And we really want to talk about using that to help get people engaged in this.
Okay, we're going to tell you a secret that has to stay in this room. Ready? Not outside this room. You'll see this again if you're going to be a Baldridge examiner next year. So you're getting a head start. Traditionally, many organizations use the Plan, Do, Check Act, Plan, Do, Study Act. How many of your organizations do that? A whole bunch of you, more than most should. We describe Plan, Do, Check Act as It's not something that either Deming or Stewart invented. It's something that they figured out and just described as, this is how life really works. This is how we get to work every day. We take the same path we did yesterday unless something stops us from it, and then we make a decision to go a different route, and we evaluate that route, and if the new route's better, we use the new route until something changes again. It's why we pick the grocery stores that we pick. This is how we do life. When you think about the PDCA, PDSA, it's always described as a, what? Continuous process improvement model. Okay, well, something in those words kind of rung a bell with us, and the first was continuous, which means you had to have a process to begin with, and that it's never going to stop. That makes sense? So if we look at that from a different perspective, it's kind of like a spring. You started at some point, and you just continuously improved on and on and on. Well, what we found, especially from a leadership perspective, is that there are times when you need to stop improving your process, because the cost-benefit analysis that you do says it's good enough, and any future investment to make it better is not going to be of value to either ourselves or our stakeholders. So my personal anecdote where I learned this was in a shipping world, in a logistics world. The FedEx truck leaves the dock at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. When do you need to pull your stock off the shelf? Sometime before 5. Do you need to pull it at 2 o'clock in the morning? Maybe not. What you do need to make sure is that whatever is ordered is on the truck at 5. So if you understand the true drivers of the metrics, it makes it a little easier to say, you know, it's not how fast we pull it off the shelf that's important. What's important is how much we got on the truck today that was supposed to be on the truck today. Whether we did that in 1 hour or 8 hours, using 8 times the resources or 1 time the resource, it's important that it gets out today.
So we took the Plan Do Study Act. The other thing, how many of you have been involved in writing or evaluating a Baldrige-based application internationally or for the Oklahoma? Okay, one of the things about those is that they end up with lots and lots of acronyms. And that's because they're really condensed into that 50 pages. And we prefer to have acronyms that have meaning. So the other thing that we looked at with PDSA is we said, you know, Plan Do Study Act, PDSA doesn't spell anything, it's kind of hard to pronounce, a little bit difficult to dance to it, put it. So we wanted to start it out with some steps to identify when to start. We also needed to know when to get off of that revolution circle. And so we're going to put an identify and a sustain or share at the end. And we decided, you know what, we should change that Plan Do Study Act into design, execute, analyze, and learn. Those words mean almost the same thing, but when we do that, we now have a deal in the middle of that instead of a PDSA circle. And we can either make it a big deal or we can make it a little deal. We can identify to get started, we could share and sustain when we decide that we need to use those resources to go improve some other process. And then it comes out to ideals. So you take the deal, put an I and an S on it, you come up with ideals, and we refer to that as the ideal solution. So we have a little exercise for you, and we're going to hand out a couple of papers. We have a couple of helpers in the room. We'd like you to look at this hidden picture, because we really believe that the identification piece is the hard work. So we want everybody to have a piece of paper in front of you. You might find it easier to look at the paper, you might find it easier to look at the screen, but we want you to try and identify all of the faces that are hidden in this picture. And circle them or mark them off on the paper, but somehow or other just start with identifying, see if you can find the 11 faces that are hidden in the picture.
This is independent work. Keep your eyes on your own paper. When we get someone that has gotten to all 11 faces, please raise your hand. Some of the middle ones. Oh, some who started before us.
Right, that's no fair.
You got all 11?
You got it?
By your count? Fantastic.
All right then.
All right. So now, since we got our first person at 11, we want you to share with one of the people next to you and have them validate your 11. Come on, Rudy, hurry up. You got them? All right. Okay, so go ahead and share. Ah! Did everybody else hear that? Serge, say it again. There's more than 11. How'd that happen? We only looked for 11. We kind of created the circumstance or the conditions for you that we said, find all 11. And so when some of us found 11, we went, got it, we declared success, we're done. So let's kind of take a look at 11 that are up here on the screen. Everybody get that one, the big chief on the right?
Yeah.
Or am I right, your left? Okay. How about kind of Abe Lincoln-ish looking guy there? How about the one looking over the shoulder? Saw him? There's another one hidden right behind him. You catch that one? All right. Another one deep dark in the trees behind there. One off to the side, kind of looking the other direction. One next to the horse, we didn't tell you not to count the horses.
And the cowboy on the horse.
And the cowboy, yeah, we didn't tell you not to count them. Okay. There's another one there. Everybody get the really big one? Okay, there's 9. How about the one down at the bottom center? 10. How about the one over there in the bottom corner? 11. All right, well, our encouragement for you is when you are looking for something, to not limit yourself in your look. Because if we keep going and we keep looking, we start with those 11, and then we find another one there, and 13, and 14, and 15, and 16, and we keep going and going. We've counted so far 36 that we've found this item. And all right, say again.
Faces on some of those for me because I'm still not seeing.
Sure. It's going to be hard to imagine because I'm way up close. Here's another 22. Here's an eye. Here's an eye. There's a chin. Here's a bridge across the top of the lip. How's that? But our encouragement for you, especially in a leadership role, is when you're out and about your organization to be identifying what's important to you. So, for example, if you're going on a safety walk and you've told yourself, safety is important to my organization, I'm doing a safety walk today, you're much more likely to find things that are impacted by safety than if you're just going out for a walk and a tour in the plant or chatting in the office with the folks that are out there. Does that make sense? So we want to be able to use that concept through our leadership system to say, you know what, today's safety day, or today's attaboy day. And we're going to be looking for opportunities to say attaboy or attagirl to our employees, hey, good job. Because it's very easy for us to walk by good jobs when we don't have that as part of our focus.
The other lessons in this is that sometimes the perspective that you have matters, and the frame that's there for you. We talk a lot about out of the box, but we put the box of 11 around this, and people don't want to get out of the box. If we put a bigger box around it, instead of the box is 20 or the box is 30, people would expand their looking into the box. We've also had people that have gotten pretty creative and innovative about how they're going to find these things. We instructed you
organizations, we have about 4 different groups of what we call identify methods. And those groups are, there's some review. It's the monthly operations review, it's the quarterly safety review, it's the budget review, it's the review and analysis review. But there's also some others, including the measurement system. We may have a robust measurement system that keys us in. A certain parameter has been exceeded, it flashes a red light, or it gives some other indicator that something is not going the way we want it to. We may have action plans put in place that we're reviewing on a recurring basis, and we've established what we call glide slopes or flight lines to determine whether or not we are on track or on budget or on progress with our desired action plan. But we like to kind of think of them as we have some positive methods for identifying, and those would include having process improvement teams that we send out, or a Kaizen team that goes out to tackle on a particular issue, and they're going to be doing a lot of identification in a rather rapid approach. Okay? There's some negative measures, and those are things such as, hey, our results aren't meeting the standards, or they're not meeting our projections, we're not getting to where we want to be, or somebody got hurt. If somebody got hurt, that means that there's a problem. There's either a safety issue, or there's a behavior issue, or a compliance issue, or an equipment issue. No matter what it is, if we got somebody hurt, that's something that we need to go identify what the cause was and make sure that we're able to mitigate that.
One of the things with identification is that we're really asking you to see the invisible, and I wanted to just play this video for you.
Everybody see that?
Vi ska rädda världen. Det är fint att vara realist. En osynlig cykelhjälm är ju en symbol för det omöjliga. Vår professor, det första han sa var faktiskt I have to sit down. I have to sit down. You're gonna be millionaires. Känslan av cykelhjälmen, så som jag minns den från när man var liten, den är väldigt obehaglig. De är ju otroligt skrymmande och stora. Det är liksom en asfalt på huvudet. Hittar vi på någonting som skulle kunna vara revolutionerande, så är det verkligen revolutionerande. För cykelhjälmsbranschen har sett likadan ut sedan den föddes. Vi kontaktade en professor i cyklistsällskap, så laddade vi upp alla kända cykelolyckor som finns och iscensatte dem och samlade in rörelsemönstret från olyckor. Sen samlade vi in hundratals timmar med normal cykling och sen hittade en metod att skilja dem åt. Jättelätt, tog bara 7 år. Det är på väg att hända väldigt mycket med cykeln i städerna. Bilar är lite dåtid och cyklarna är framtid. Vi har varit väldigt framgångsrika med att ta in riskkapital, och vi har varit väldigt duktiga på att förhandla. Tagit in kring 60 miljoner totalt. Sen är det väl många som har ifrågasatt hur man som tjej kan komma på någonting så pass tekniskt. En gång var det en man vi mötte som ville gärna berätta en historia om att kvinnor inte kan vara chefer. Sätt in en tupp i hönsgården så blir det ordning. Allt som folk säger till oss är omöjligt provocerar oss att bevisa motsatsen. osynlig cykel igen, vilket väldigt många sa till oss är omöjligt att göra det, är ju liksom ett bevis på att man kan klara det mesta.
What did they do? What was their innovation?
Airbag, helmet.
Turn an airbag into a helmet. And a lot of times, you know, we look at that and we go, oh yeah, that was innovative. But we don't think in our own environment sometimes of taking something that's common and putting it to a different use. Or taking two things and combining them together. Or taking something from another sector and bringing it into our sector and our experience and saying, you know what, in this venue, in this way, that's never been done before. They didn't invent airbags. They invented the possibility of putting an airbag into something that would be deployed to be a bicycle helmet. And they found a new use for airbags. And that's a lot of what innovation is about. And being on the lookout for those kinds of things, new uses for common options. So there's lots of things that we think of as innovative. And some of these, to me, are things that I sure wish I would have invented that because it seems like it was so simple. My personal one is that, you know, the coolers now that are on the wheels. You know, I grew up in the era where you carried it around. I actually invented a cooler on wheels. I took the cooler and I put it in my kid's wagon when we were going to the music school. And cooler on wheels, if I would have put the wheels on the cooler, it might have been better. But now we've got suitcases on wheels. We've got, you know, all these things that now happen differently. Somebody says, you know, I can combine this and that and come up with something that would be new.
One of the things that we encourage you to do in your own organization is a little phrase that we call "be the box." And whether you're in manufacturing and you've got boxes coming in on pallets and moving on conveyor lines, or you're producing letters or paper, or you're processing forms, whatever it is to physically go and be that box and follow it around and see what happens to it. Many of you remember that or at least some of you will remember that, let's say 30 years ago, how long did it take to get a mortgage approved? It was 30 days. From when you applied, it was 30 days. And then some banker said, you know, we're losing money because of this. Let's be the box. Let's be the envelope. Let's be the application. And so they followed the application around, and what they found was it was sitting on somebody's desk for days. And if it comes to this person's desk, he's got about 2 minutes worth of review that he's going to do on it. He does his review, then he puts it in distribution. 3 hours later, the distribution cart comes along, picks it up, drops it off in somebody else's inbox, who then gets to it when they get to it, do their 2 or 3 minutes worth of work, put it back in distribution, and away it goes. And that took 30 days. But what they did was they did a study, and they said, well, how much actual time are we doing something to it other than moving it? And what they found was it was only several hours. Now how long does it take to get a mortgage approved? Sometimes a day, especially if you're doing them online. And it's because they've removed so much of the non-value added steps by looking at it saying, what adds value, what doesn't, how can we remove what doesn't? So we encourage you to look at your processes from that different perspective of being the object or being the product that you're dealing with, and seeing where we are actually adding value from the customer's perspective. And if it's not value added from the customer, then it's probably something we don't want to be doing.
The key piece of this is that you can be innovative about the product, and a lot of us think of innovation as something I need to go get a patent on that, like the invisible bicycle helmet, or like the, you know, the cooler on wheels, or the suitcase on wheels, or those kinds of things. But your innovation can also happen with your processes, and it's important to look at those too. And when you see them, when you innovate a process, claim that, study it, figure out how you did that, you saw that opportunity, and create more of it.
Share with you a little personal anecdote. In my former military days, system, and in one of our depots, we had a process where large bulky boxes of items would be moved to what we called a depacking center. So for example, if some unit ordered 3 pairs of size 10 boots, a warehouse would take a pallet of size 10 boots, send it to the depacking center by truck up to the top. The pallet would come off, it would go down a roller, it would then come down a sorting line, and then some worker at one of those square boxes would open up the big case, take out 3 pairs of number 10 boots, set them off to the side, close the big case, send the big case along its way, and then package these 3 pairs of boots as a separate box now, and send them along the way. Well, what they found was that that process ended right here. But there was so much that they couldn't get to the outbound truck that they created a queue down this. Now this is approximately 150 feet of length. So 50 yards, if you will, of pallets lined up in queue. Well, the problem is the exit door is over here. So we ended up having to have 4 employees whose job it was to drive forklifts down to the end of the queue, pick up the pallet of, or the repalletized pallet that's now missing 3 pairs of boots, drive it over to the truck to have the truck take it back to the warehouse from whence it came. The pallet of 3 boots would come down here, the next guy would pick that up, bring it to the truck, who would then truck it over to the shipping center. Does anybody see a problem with this? What's the problem? Other than those 2 forklifts are driving 50 yards empty back and forth. Well, we looked at this process and we said, well, this whole queue thing is wasteful. This isn't lean at all. We know that anything waiting is wrong. But then we asked the next question, well, why are we sending it here in the first place? Couldn't the guy that first pulled it off the shelf pull the 3 pairs of boots out and send it over to shipping? Why, yes, by golly, we could. And this was a real lesson in leadership for me personally. This is something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Because I was standing here with about a half a dozen leaders of the processes involved, and we all looked at each other and we went, there's 43 people working in here for 0 value added.
And so they told him that.
They have been doing so for 25 years. This process had been in place for 25 years. And we very poorly made that communication. We shut down this entire operation that afternoon, moved those 43 people back to the sourcing warehouses, and shaved overnight 7 hours of processing time off of our order ship time. The good news is we shaved 7 hours off of order ship time. The bad news is we did a really poor job of communicating with employees. Now we learned that, and the good news is we never did that way again. But had we not been out looking, this would still be going on.
So we use what we refer to as the 6 E's as a systematic approach to innovation. And they do kind of go around
conducting lean training, some white belt, some yellow belt projects, green belt projects, conducting training in Lean Six Sigma, theories of constraints, other types of process improvement methodologies, to where we're going to educate all of our employees, not just a handful, but all of our employees, so that we maximize our opportunities for that. And then the next step is to equip them with the proper tools and to make sure that they've got the things that they need in order to go about their day with an eye, first off, to identify opportunities for improvement, and then the knowledge through their education of what they can do, and then having the tools given to them in order to make improvements. And then this becomes the leadership piece, is the empowerment part. That we've got to be able to empower our folks to make the changes that are appropriate, draw the barrier or draw the necessary boxes that we should. My personal boxes were nobody gets hurt and we don't blow the big metrics. Other than that, you're free to make changes and go around the organization as appropriate. There were some later ones that we added that said if it's just your process, you can change it. You don't have to tell anybody. If it affects somebody else upstream or downstream, you got to have a chat. Make sure that they agree. If it affects more than two departments or more than one department, then you got to have the department heads talking to each other. But you establish the rules, but empower the employees to go. And I got to tell you, as an Army colonel, one of the things that really just blew my mind, we had several thousand civilian employees at our installation, and I figured out that all of them were adults. Every one of them owned, you ready for this, a car. Most of them owned homes. The majority of them were parents and grandparents. They weren't kids. They weren't idiots. They weren't unknowledgeable robots. They were living, breathing, thinking, decision-making people. So by empowering them to make changes, we were able to then engage them in the process.
The engagement is important. The message about, we got 43 people that have been doing this for 25 years and it doesn't add value is not the worst message we've ever heard. Probably the worst message we've ever heard was, we went and benchmarked with another company that had been in bankruptcy and they were doing this lean thing, and we're going to do that too because now they're doing twice as much stuff with half the people. There's a good message when you got to. So you need to help them and get their understanding that you're going to be changing the organization and it's a good thing, and encourage them to participate with it and encourage them to come up with their ideas and not just their ideas. And then evaluate, make sure that what you're doing is truly a change for the better. So we want to go through these just a little bit, and we built our slides. You all have access to those. They're all in the thumb drive. But so these are in here mostly. We're going to buzz through them pretty quickly, but you really want to get the frontline folks involved because they're the ones who are most familiar with the processes. They're the ones who would have really good ideas for changing the processes. Get them involved in the different methodologies, the different tools. Cross-pollinate, invite people to share across their departments. We love this quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes that once the mind is stretched by a new idea, it never goes back to its original shape. And encourage people to see what maybe they haven't seen before. We do talk about working on the roots in order to flush out the crown of the tree, do a root cause analysis, and most of us think of this in terms of negative, something went wrong. The appreciative inquiry root cause analysis, we call it an RCA plus, is figure out when something went really well and dig down to the root of that and figure out why and figure out how you can replicate that so that it's not always seen as a negative thing when the quality department's coming around or when somebody says we're going to do an RCA, or as one of my staff once said, hey, I got 2 A's today. You don't make that do that.
Well, the tools we have, you've heard 5 whys. That's continuously at least 5 times asking why a particular thing is happening until you can get to the root cause of what it was that's happening.
On the equip, you want to give them again the resources that they need. Don't set your teams up by failure.
30 seconds and jot down everything that you can think of you can use a paper clip for.
Be innovative.
Okay? Who came up with 5? Okay? About half the room. All right, what was your process? How'd you do that?
You think about what you have done with paperclip in the past. Did you think about maybe what you could do with paperclip? Did you think about the different shapes of the paperclip? You could unfurl it, uncoil it, the different parts of the paperclip that you could use, maybe using the end as a screwdriver. Who came up with something really innovative that you'd like to share with your users?
I came up with, usually I always run out of hooks to hang up Christmas tree ornaments on my tree. Never mind ornament tree.
Very timely.
That's one of my
Obviously,
favorites.
it's not innovative.
I had a coworker who used it to hold a philodendron all around the roof because she had a drop, or
Yeah.
around the ceiling, she had a drop ceiling.
I did notice it.
And then sometimes one idea leads to another one. You know, once you start with a creative idea, then you can lead to another one. So this is just kind of a fun mind game to play with your group. And just a brain stretch a little bit, make you creative.
All right, and empowering people. A lot of people have a little hesitancy about getting out of the box. Some of us like to stay in the lines, and our encouragement there is to expand the box, make it so that it's still a safe place that they can operate and try some new things. We want to fight that fear of change and just empower them to be thinking a little bit differently as to what they can do.
The next one is to engage, and that's just get people started, encourage their ideas, make sure that your reward and recognition system is set up for what you want to be really rewarding. If you want to generate a whole bunch of ideas, celebrate the generation of ideas, not necessarily just the ones that get implemented. So do some of this anticipatory thinking, think beyond the next step, wherever it is that you want to lead people to go, and then be passionate as a leader about getting people involved and engaged and motivated to think creatively. And this other, when you think about how you fold a shirt, and we have just another little video about a unique and creative way to fold up a shirt.
Hey everybody, what's up? I'm Craig Stokes. Welcome back to Style Minute. It's great to be here. Today on the show, I'm going to show you how to fold a t-shirt very easily, very quickly. 2 different options. One quick way I used to do it back when I worked retail was to grab a folding board or an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I would fold over one side, fold over the other like I'm doing right now, then grab a small section of the bottom, fold over once, fold over one more time. Now this isn't rocket science, but it turns out to be a really, really nicely folded shirt. Cool thing about it is you can take a sheet of paper out or leave it in. Either way, it's your choice and you're left with a nicely, neatly folded shirt. Option number 2, quick way you can fold a shirt in 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3, no, better yet, maybe even 2 seconds. This is how it's done. We're going to draw an imaginary line. On this line, there's point A right here with my left hand, point B with my right. I grab point C also with my right. Now, unfold my hands really, really quickly, shake it out, put it down, fold it over. Once again, nicely, neatly folded shirt. Now, let's try it full speed.
Speed things are more
We have a shirt brought down our display, but it's not practicing. You do it with your encourage people. That's the next one. It's really, build a prototype, get them started, encourage their ideas, encourage their thinking, keep it a bright line about why you want to do this, what's in it for you.
last and finally is to evaluate. This is a step we think gets overlooked a lot. We want to be able to build accountability into our projects. Part of that requires that we have a baseline to begin with, and that we measure the current process, and then look to see what improvements we are getting. Keep a record of how well we're doing, and just as Denise just said, do it your best as a leader to reward and recognize the desired behavior. The desired behavior is a culture of innovation, a culture of improvement, not necessarily just that $100,000 great idea that one person came up with 3 years ago. Because wouldn't you like to have $100,000, $1,000 improvements every year? And then when we're talking about measuring things, this is one of our favorite measurements that we've come up with, and we want to make sure that you know that it's not just measuring things that are important, and it's not just making sure that you have accurate measures, it's about how you analyze what you measure. So we share with you our favorite science from around the world in the little town of New Cayama, California. We point out that every one of these are very precise measures, and for this city, they are very important. However, we do question a bit about their analytic.
We have no question at all about their senses. Here.
Falls into what we call the MMIBSPW. Why isn't that interesting, but so what? Okay, here's some resources. Again, these are in the slide decks that are available to you. We encourage you to go look at some of these, especially when we're talking much about TED. If you've heard of TED Talks and you know what we're talking about, if you haven't heard of TED Talks, we encourage you to go to www.ted.com and just enjoy your time while you're there. We're sure you will go back.
There's a phone